So I was asked 2 questions I should answer, which are very big subject matters, but despite my nature, I will try to be brief. So, it's a classical questions. These questions are all devotees who are in a preaching field or in a managerial field will face these questions sooner or later. First question was, I think, how to take care of temple devotees, including temple brahmacharis, sankirtan devotees, and how to take care of those who are living in a congregational field, whereby right away from the beginning I would divide the congregation into 2 parts. Those who approach Krishna consciousness from their karmic field, mostly in type of grihastha situations. Congregation means mostly grihastha. And those who actually were in a temple, or they got brahmachari training and they got eventually married, and now they find themselves in this congregational field. It would be expected that those who received that kind of training in a temple, like brahmacharis and this, they got married, so they use this training to actually help their congregational friends and those devotees who come from a karmic world, just, like that. Of course, it's connected to the question which was already there when Srila Prabhupada was here, that controversy arose because some devotees thought we joined the Hare Krishna movement, and joining Hare Krishna movement at that time meant that you joined the temple. Okay? And you submit yourself to the temple authorities, and you get the temple training, the temple sadhana, everything. And it was actually understood in a very naive way that this is living in Krishna consciousness. If you want to live in Krishna consciousness, you live in a temple, and then if you are not belonging to any temple or under the temple authority, then basically you are living on your own, and then you are basically in Maya. That was the movement I joined, at least in Europe. I'm speaking now about, just the early days of preaching in Europe. In America, they were already ahead of us, because the movement started earlier. So we heard in America there is something called Grihastha Ashrama. Wow. Devotees get married. Wow. Because I joined the movement, there was this brahmachari, brahmacharini. That's it. The only one who was married actually was our GBC and temple president. But we thought this is a transcendental thing. This is his leela or something like that. Yes. Because those days, sannyasi or authority carried a very, very high profile. And it was also justified because we knew this was given to these devotees, by Srila Prabhupada. And that alone was a total authorization. Prabhupada gave somebody a sannyas. Well, that was, that was 100% authorization. When sannyasi arrived in a temple, his feet got washed and there was special cooking going on and there was like a whole ceremony for that. And whatever the sannyasi commanded, that was it. And all arriving sannyasis were active in preaching field. They were actually doing the same we were doing. They went on Harinam, they were distributing books. It was just basically same thing. But there were this, senior devotees. That means they were like 2-3 years in Krishna consciousness. That was a senior devotee. And it was a very innocent, you could say, atmosphere, powered by a great or high level of faith. Why? Because everything what we saw came from Srila Prabhupada. So that was powering a very high level of faith. Because Srila Prabhupada was understood being totally, 100% beyond any material consideration. And that was right. I mean, my understanding is until today like that. I get always very, I have to control my nature, which is not Brahminical. When I hear Prabhupada, the attempts to make Srila Prabhupada to a relative person, he was nice, he was a good devotee, but when the but comes up, my hands go like this. And I always wonder, why is this? Why are my hands getting ready to punch somebody when they come with this but? But that's my problem. I managed so far to control it. I didn't punch really anybody. And I don't meet people like this because they don't like me and they always go on Facebook and then they wait until I go somewhere else and think, no Facebook, So anyway, this was actually the reason why there was such a high faith. And wherever high faith is and strong leadership, well, things will happen. Everything in Krishna consciousness is based on faith and strong leadership, which manifests the faith. Strong leadership means strong faith. That's it. So, no wonder that so many things happened. Actually, so many things happened and came about which we still derive benefits from. How was this temple created? By high faith. There were devotees who were like, this is going to be it. We are in Zagreb and we are, and they took this ridiculous location, this broken building and everything, and they built it into the temple. This is all built on faith. On trust. And when the trust got damaged and hurt, that's the biggest damage you can do. And here we come to the devotee care. The biggest care for a devotee is that you learn to, or you try at least, to increase and protect their trust. That's a heavy job. Because Kali Yuga generally means nobody trusts anybody. It's an atmosphere filled with quarrel and dissension. That's everywhere you see. Everywhere you go, people are just, that atmosphere is everywhere. I think I believe in my opinion. And you just find it on all levels. So karmis have a simple solution to that. They don't command authority, they demand authority. How? There's two departments essentially. Money and police. So they bribe you with money, some kind of money, it's just paper nowadays. Or if you still don't surrender and you have some reservations and don't follow the mainstream line, then comes the, policing. So it's a demoniac policy, constantly keeping people in fear, creating problems even for that purpose, and entering the scene like the savior of the problems. That's what demons do. They create tensions, in unnecessary. Like if the material nature wouldn't give us enough tension, they increase the tension, and when people are afraid, they go, well, vote for me, I will save you. And people do that. It was beautiful in the Cold War times. There was the bad communists, bad capitalists, and you could switch it around. The game was the rules of the game, whereby the leaders of both parties were sometimes meeting each other and enjoying each other together. It's a fact, actually. They knew the rules of the game, So there's demoniac management. In Krishna consciousness, we don't have it. If I would be more prepared for this, I could, and I have with me files. I don't have a files in a computer. I don't trust this. Because the computer can go boop, boop, and erase everything, Yeah? So I have everything printed out, copied out, written out, It's big files like that, where I divided for myself Srila Prabhupada's letters and any quotes I get from him in different subject matters. Such books do exist already. Such things called Shikshamrita or whatever, but they're highly edited. That's not actually many times the real original letters you find. There are original letters, but it's already edited. Whereby there is another publication, was published, which just contains with no editation whatsoever, just letters which could be saved. There were many, many other letters which got lost, And there you find very valuable instructions how to take care of the congregation. For managers, practical things. Because Prabhupada wrote a lot in his books, but in his letters he was more specific, more personal to the individual devotees. But these letters, there was a big, big discussion if they should be published at all. Fortunately, there is a letter from Prabhupada actually when he says, yes, but not now. We have more important things to do. The books come first. But it would be possible, the letters can be also published. He writes in a letter like this. Why? Because the letters are generally containing a very general instructions for everybody. Public, really. But they are also very personal, of course. Describing or advising devotee, even what kind of medicine to take or what to do in that particular situations. And so it's very interesting. I can tell you what Prabhupada said, what pregnant women should eat or not eat, and things like that, quite down to the floor, the very detailed stuff. But in general, for his managers, Prabhupada gave a heavy warning. He said, first, you become aware that we are not managing like kamis. Not at all. Everybody comes in the temple voluntarily. Now, I spoke even with kamis who are operating voluntarily based operation, charity, and you can come and help the needed, And all these managers, they told me exactly the same thing like any ISKCON manager would tell me. Managing volunteers is like hell. Why? Because they come and go as they like. But the operation you started requires commitment. Like this temple has needs, okay? There's deities, and there's rules and regulations. But volunteer will tell you sometimes, I don't feel so good today, bye-bye. Or he will come back again in a completely unpredictable fashion. So how do you manage something which requires such a strict regime with such unpredictable people? Prabhupada said our only way to manage people is by preaching. That's the only power we have. We have no money really to bribe people. Some operation, I know devotees are highly money-based operation. They have already that kind of economy that they can pay people. That brings a certain stability. But it's illusory because people join and commits himself mostly because of the money, not because of the unconditional service. No. So that compromises the situation. But I could go now more in detail, and there's always a whole idea how to base the whole ISKCON movement on money. This is when Vaishya type of person become dominant, because they don't know any other way. They go like, okay, how much does it cost? How much do we need? Let's generate money. And the problem with the Vaishya type of people, they sometimes don't care how the money is generated. And immediately the standards get compromised, everything. Really kind of Vaishya mentality person, he will do anything for money. I don't want to go more in details how then what the result will be. It's usually catastrophic from spiritual point of view. Because you get everything corrupted, Yeah. And then the atmosphere becomes really intimidated by money. If we tell him the truth, he will not give any money. So better we keep him in his illusion. But he's giving money. But because he's in illusion, he may change his opinion and he stops giving money anyway. So, there's the Vaishya mentality is incredible, and I see it everywhere I go. It's just all about money. They even say in India, you know what the best business in India is? Become a guru. Some kind of guru. And they say, this is a good business, Guru. Why do you take sannyas? Because then people give more money. It sounds crazy, isn't it? That's not the Prabhupada line at all. But people do that. And how is the sannyasi looking? He has to have a long beard. Yeah. Swamiji, he's a guru, big, long beard, big guru. Big money, big guru. And I tell you, in India, there are gurus. I'm speaking about this movement. There are all kinds of gurus. They are very rich. Very rich. So, it's not our line. It shouldn't be. Prabhupada was... I remember when some highly placed manager from Tata company came. Tata producing buses and big company. And he was a pious man. In India you find very rich people and very pious people simultaneously, which is usually not the case in the West. So he came to see Prabhupada because he was always interested to see a holy man. And he was used when it was known, that's a big Tata man coming. Then immediately everybody was like, welcome, and you could give a donation for this, and you could give a donation for that, and you could give a Guru Dakshin like that, So he was used to that. So he expected to see Prabhupada and hear the same thing. And Prabhupada instinctively, immediately knew who it is. And Prabhupada was used in India to deal with a high-profile, big businessman. So he knew. And as soon as the man came, Prabhupada talked just about Krishna conscious philosophy. And the man said, I'm the big Tata man. I like your movement, I could give a good donation. Prabhupada told him, we don't need any donation. We are maintained by Krishna. The man he never heard this one before. So he said, no, Prabhupada didn't understand. I'm a big man, I have a big money. So he came again, and again came on the same line. Well, I could just give a big donation. Prabhupada said, no, I already said we don't need any money. We are maintained by Krishna. Completely ignored it and talked about Krishna. Until the man got so shaken up. So he actually started to ask, what is Krishna consciousness? And then suddenly Prabhupada became very personal and talked to him very nicely, and he said, and if you like, you can give a donation. I heard that story, and this is classical. We should not compromise on this platform. And even it looks like sometimes we really struggle for money, then maybe we are in a situation where we cannot handle what we have, or Krishna doesn't think we should have it. It's possible. Like temple. Prabhupada said we don't need any temple. These temples are not for us. He said they are for people. They can come and see in practical way how to worship Krishna, get the darshan, and do all these things described, the processes of devotional service. Bow down and give charity and things like that, yeah. But Prabhupada said, us? He said, we can preach under a tree. And he did that. That's how he started this movement. He just sat down and he was just chanting and then people joined. Prabhupada said, we don't need any temple. But for the people, we need this kind of thing. Like he called it embassy. Embassies. Embassies are actually quite useless buildings, you know that? I mean, you come in any embassy, there's practically nobody living here, just the ambassador maybe. It's a fancy building, but it's usually very empty. It got a big sign in front, Russian embassy or Chinese embassy, but in a very luxurious area usually. But otherwise, it just doesn't have any purpose really. So, but they represent the country. Anybody dealing in a particular country with another country has to go to the embassy. So Prabhupada called temples like that, embassies. So sometimes you feel like we are just maintaining an embassy here and hardly anybody coming. What is this? No, it's Krishna's embassy finished. But Prabhupada envisioned the temple being the center of spiritual cultivation. That means actually the inhabitants of the temple, the ambassadors, have to be also cultured. And he said straight out, temple is not a youth hostel for crazies and lazies. Now, this is a really problem. Because there are plenty of lazies and crazies. And unfortunately, the conditioned soul rarely comes to Krishna consciousness until it's completely finished. I have no money anymore. My whole life broke down. My wife or girlfriend left me. So now, and I ruined my brain by excessive drug consumption or whatever. So now I'm ready to join the Hare Krishna movement. Because I don't know where to go. And Krishna himself says very practically, those who are in pain, those who are curious, just curious, and those who need some economical base to survive, they approach me. And Krishna said, they are all dear to me. Because they approach me. They take shelter. But there is a fourth class which is most dear to me, and that's the ones who seek transcendental knowledge. That's ultimately the goal of this embassy, and that's actually the meaning of a temple. To disseminate transcendental knowledge and enlightenment. So actually, ideally, the atmosphere in a temple should be very enlightened and full of transcendental knowledge and full of, what is the symptom of transcendental knowledge? The first symptom described in Bhagavad Gita is that you become very joyful. Now, I don't know today, but there are some temples which I would not consider the atmosphere being joyful. I remember one man, he visited a Hare Krishna temple. And he was curious. He belonged into the curious category. So he came in a temple, and the first thing you see is nothing. There's nobody there. Nobody at the door. Hello, welcome. Yeah, no. So he walks through these empty rooms, And then he came to a main room. There was a table like this. And on a table was lying some bag. And he was curious. He said, somebody forgot a bag here. Then he looked into the bag and there was beads inside. So he said, this is interesting. Same moment, a monk came shooting around the corner and said, don't touch it! The man got shocked. He threw the bag away and he ran out of the door and never came back again. This had really happened. So I served in yatras, which were very remote, far north, which were so empty, the temples, that devotees got shocked when somebody came. They were sitting in the room and they were going, there's somebody at the door. Who's going to talk to him? I'm busy. I talk to him. Really. So naturally, this is not very inviting to join the Hare Krishna movement. Or you come in a temple and, and there is somebody sitting there going, just imagine how it looked to somebody who just walks in a door. Yeah. We should always think we are living in a shopping window. Like this temple room, it's not a city temple. So we have here trees, right? And vegetation outside looking out of this shopping windows. It's like a shopping window here. So the trees will not give you much of a feedback, But city people do. Prabhupada used to sit, vocabulary, in a shopping window. Much less gifts. The shop. And Prabhupada was sitting there chanting, giving lecture. And people were going shopping, from shopping window to shopping window, looking. And suddenly they look in a shopping window and there was a temple room full of devotees and there was Prabhupada sitting there on a Vyasasana. So they were like, oh, what is this? And Prabhupada, even during the lecture, when he was lecturing, he saw these people stopping on this window. What is this? Prabhupada was going, come in. So they realized, oh, this is a public event, I can also come in. So the people just walked in, during the lecture, and were like, sit down, and they couldn't understand anything what Prabhupada is saying. But they were already part of the Hare Krishna movement. This mentality should never get lost. So much for the temple devotees. Like yesterday I saw it, there were some Indians coming, I think you were out there or somebody on a parking place. Oh, welcome, and we know it's Indians, sorry, I hope this is recorded, but they often come just to collect some pious plus points, They go, darshan, little donation, big donation, not big donation. Few coins, and then they go, I did my thing, bye-bye. And then they sit out there on a parking and they make a selfie, photo. Hare Krishna temple, me, in the middle. They don't make photo of the deities even, they make photo of themselves, on the parking, and they go, photo, selfie, with a friend, And then they send it to India. I was in Zagreb in Hare Krishna temple, because, I travel around, And I came there with a big car. My car, big car. And then, so it's a little bit like a visit in some amusement park or something like that. But it's a pious. And that's what the temple is also for. Just facilitate people who just come, do some pious deed, and this is the eternal credit. Krishna says, good, it's registered. And then they go again. Much in India you see it all the time. So I don't want to go now into the Indian thing because I have experienced India from 1978 up to today. It's a big change. That's a big change. Also in approach and in relationship of the congregational people to devotees, much changed. Anyway, so The temple devotee should be aware of that. This is not a private, it looks like, because usually there are not so many. So it's like a small band of, of survivors in a temple, and then they have this kind of very, I could call it almost familiar relationships. You know each other, we look here the Vaishnava, but he is snoring at night, and and he is eating sometimes too much halava, and the talks are sometimes of a quite loose nature, like that. It can happen because we know each other, so but it is in one sense natural. It happens because they just have this small band of devotees, maintaining usually much more as what they can handle. It's amazing. However the small temple may be, it's still bigger as what devotees can handle. It's kind of, we were thinking, it's Krishna's trick, I started like a temple with 4 or 5 devotees. By the time we had 45 devotees, it was still too little. There was always somebody missing. As a manager, you're always looking for somebody missing. It didn't matter. I said, this is Krishna's trick. He always makes things so we have no time to relax. Because when we relax, we will do some nonsense. So Krishna is always keeping us going. Hey, this is needed. This is that. I never saw a peaceful manager in ISKCON, sorry. The manager means, once I asked my GBC, how can a manager really avoid problems? And he laughed at me. And he knew my nature, so he was very straightforward. So he said, manager, avoiding problems? Manager eats problems for the breakfast. And I said, yeah, great, that's what it is, yeah. If you cannot handle such a lifestyle, you are in the wrong place. Finished. Manager is just the disaster. I don't want to go more in detail what manager is, but he will be envied, he will be criticized, and everybody comes just with complaints and needs. Very inspiring existence, I tell you. Everybody wants to get something from you. You hardly ever find somebody who goes, Prabhu, it's so nice you are struggling here maintaining the place, It helps, Even a big manager, he needs sometimes somebody going, great, thank you for what you are doing here. But then I completely stopped expecting that, Even my authority, we speak about Hare Kesha, he got into a situation being in charge, so despot that he wrote to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I am sitting here, nobody likes what I am doing, nobody is responding to what I am doing, what am I doing here at all? Prabhupada wrote to him, I see what you are doing, Krishna sees what you are doing, this is not enough for you. And he got enthusiastic and just was going in. That's actually for the managers, that's the major inspiration. Otherwise, don't expect much inspiration. Sorry. But, and even people even come and say, oh, you are a wonderful manager, I like you. Usually they want something. Sorry. But, this is life. It's normal, you get used to it. So the temple is actually being in a temple. It's actually a very responsible situation. You are living in a shopping window, and people will come, ask, and see exactly what you are doing to the last detail. Like we spoke about this yesterday. One of the foremost preaching in a temple is cleanliness. Because people are not used to it so much, Kami's homes, they can be very clean, depends on which country you are, But, but temple, and people notice, they expect the Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. They see us on the street, they go, yeah, Hare Rama. Sometimes devotees have two different socks, or something like this, and they go, Hare Hare, So they think, it's just. They come to the temple, everything is clean, everything is organized. That's just the beginning. And then they carefully watch how we are relating to each other. And when they see devotees respect each other, help each other, that alone, otherwise most of the people really don't or cannot relate to our philosophy, especially not in the beginning. But they can see these things very clearly. And they get impressed. Especially people who are not envious, really. They get impressed. That's preaching. That's real preaching. And from that preaching, congregation is created. People who come back and they think, they are struggling here, maybe I should do something too for them, I should help, I should contribute. And there are certain rules for the congregation. Any support from the congregation should be very carefully recorded. That was Prabhupada. He never forgot even the smallest service somebody did. He came 2 years later and he was going, thank you. You gave this to the deities. But he was very shocked. He said, it was just a small thing. Prabhupada remembered. He never forgot a service from his disciple. And even the disciple sometimes got in trouble, even left Krishna consciousness. I remember that one story, one of the temple devotees left, and he tried to be in Maya. It didn't really work very good. Krishna is very merciful. You go out and you get only problem. And he came back and he was finished. He had a big beard and he was like not very well maintained. Prabhupada shocked the devotees. They came, he came back, and he came back actually just to see Prabhupada. Prabhupada smiled and he said, very nice, you are here again. You used to cook breakfast for me. You can immediately get him in a kitchen, he should cook breakfast. And devotees were going, this guy, in a kitchen, And he was happy. He was immediately going in a kitchen and he cooked a nice breakfast for Prabhupada. That's essentially the attitude towards the congregation. Prabhupada said, very detailed. He said, if people give money, they should know what they are giving the money for. And even sometimes people don't want to know. I gave it for Krishna here, just use it as you feel, as you need, They have this kind of trust, or they simply don't care so much. Just know. Prabhupada said, you have to inform them. Thank you for this donation, which was donated for this purpose and also spent for this purpose. Like example, you had a situation here where the roof of the temple was flying away. I guess there were people coming, isn't it, helping and all this. Well, that's a simple project because everybody knows what the whole thing is about. We need a new roof. Okay? And when there's a new roof, they go, very nice. Now it's fixed. So Prabhupada said, never, especially when they gave for certain purpose, you cannot use it for another purpose. Just without even, I know practical examples of that and I know the results of that. Massive collection, within the congregation going on for a new temple, which was already selected. It was pictures, photos. We want to buy this place. Wonderful place, big place. And people were going, this is really big, but I don't have so much money. Well, give, and there was a pressure. I don't want to go in detail about the early stages of a yatra. So many mistakes were done, naturally, because it's the early stages. There were devotees established as authorities, So I'm not the authority, and you are not the authority. So shut up, give money. For Krishna. And how is for Krishna spent? That's my business, not your business. Completely wrong approach. Could never see it in Prabhupada. And people were still, you can move, especially when you go direction east, people are used to this. Okay, the authorities said, give money. That's your last spiritual chance. So they give, even they don't have much, but they give because they think, that's my chance. You know how responsible that is? When the authorities took the money, you know what happened? That temple was never purchased. They didn't collect, first of all, enough money for that. And second of all, they didn't even bother to explain to this large amount of people who contributed for a temple which never happened. They never even bothered to explain to them what happened. They bought instead another place which they could afford for themselves. Now they will say this is a temple, but they have their private rooms, and I'm not speaking just about the authority, I'm speaking about the grihastas who are under his authority, who have received his favor. They all accommodated themselves there. This is our temple. So, I may sound a little bit edgy, but it is really criminal to do such a thing, because it doesn't even correspond with the constitution of our yatra. I think every yatra has some constitution, isn't it? Some legal, thing, with some purpose of the preaching. And I'm speaking about a temple which is in a totally lost location, useless, worthless for preaching. But it's private, more or less. I don't want to go more in detail. You go, okay, it's not even registered really in ISKCON. It should never happen. You know why? It's not the money, but it's the faith which gets demolished. So when you deal with congregation, you are dealing with something very, very fragile, with faith. People give with good faith that you will purely use it for Krishna, and that's their benefit and your benefit also. That was the mood Prabhupada installed. I mean, you find it in his letters, in the early letters. Prabhupada writes a whole letter to a devotee or to a Mataji. He goes, thank you very much for your generous contribution of $5, which I carefully deposited in my book publication fund. $5, Prabhupada very responsibly answers. Later on you find letters, thank you for the contribution of $5,000. And later on Prabhupada got $1 million. Happened. Same attitude. Thank you very much is for this purpose, informing people, very responsible. That's very important when you deal with congregation. And in essence, it's important for all devotees. Now you are like the brahmacharis in the temple. You know what we are dealing with? This is people, young people, who come to the temple for, maybe they are desperate, maybe they are in need, maybe they don't know any other way, so they just join. Still, they are working for free. Alone that. When you deal with karmis, nothing is for free. There is work and pay. Here, you have people running around from morning to the evening. If you would hire karmis for that, you would have to pay quite a lot. No, they are here serving. And they think, I do it for Krishna. That's true. But still, in essence, you got a free manpower. Try to go out in a kami world. No. Especially today, people are very reward conscious. You know, I will, come on, how much do we pay an hour? And there's a standards, how much you must get per hour paid. And there is also an obligation, even by any company hiring people, how they should take care of them. Health insurance, automatic, pension. While in Krishna consciousness, at least we should have the health insurance, because it can happen. I know a Yugoslavian devotee. He worked in Germany in a book lager, helping. And we had a big book lager. There was like 3-4 pallets on top of each other of books. And he was operating with this, shifting the pallets around. Well, he did something wrong and the whole 4 pallets just flopped over and fell on him. He got a very broken body. I mean, his body he survived, but he was a long time in a hospital. And then it was discovered, the man is not even insured. No health insurance, nothing. There was a huge bill coming from the hospital, What are you going to do with that? Fortunately, actually his parents generated all the money. Or they found out, they make some deal with some Yugoslavia insurance which paid something at least. It was a big trouble. So this is devotee care. This is how you take care of devotees. And everybody has to be some health insurance. At least minimum, basic stuff. I don't think devotees are interested to have insurance for plastic operation to look beautiful, not needed. But the basic stuff has to be there. Anything can happen anytime. Like you had recently this catastrophic thing here, the tornado came and took the roof out. What about if there would be devotees involved? They would be in trouble. You will find them maybe somewhere in Zagreb, in a center, lying on a marketplace. Tornado can do that. They pick you up and they put you down, 10 kilometers further. So, this is just an example. So much for devotee care. That's just, you could say, the bodily part. No, these bodies are engaged in devotional service. They are very precious. Very important bodies. So, and I'm not speaking about the pension. We don't have a pension in Krishna consciousness. And I have to give credit to those devotees who preached to me when I joined this movement. It was clear I will never get a pension, and they will never get a pension. And that was the biggest argument from the parents, If you join this Hare Krishna, you don't get any pension. You're going to get old. Well, later on I really learned to laugh about this one. You know why? These people, they work a whole life. There's a quota, how much you have to work to get some pension. 65 years, 50 years, every day. Same stupidifying work. And then you get pension. And they think, oh, when I get a pension I will enjoy. Money is coming. I have nothing to do. Do you ever saw an enjoying pensioner? No. The only thing you enjoy is an old rotten body, damaged from the work even, and your medicine which you get, from the doctor. That's really big enjoyment, And above all, you will be alone, abundant, and bored. It's terrible. Pensioners, they're desperate. And that's after a whole life of working. And then comes the pension, which is so minimal today. You can barely survive from that, because it's expected that during your life you accumulated some assets which you now have, and then you get a little pension. Do it. That's how the demons calculate. You know? So, now, I mean, I came to Eastern countries, especially when I came from Western countries to like, you know, after the communism, I arrived in Czechoslovakia. It was still Czechoslovakia called. And I asked about the old people, what is the pension? And they're like, you cannot live from that.
They're still working.
So, you know, so I was laughing because I thought, well, in Hare Krishna movement, I had some fun and I don't get any pension. And they had no fun and they don't get any pension either. That's what I call Maya cheating you, really. So, no pension. It's ridiculous. And demons have a big problem for that. Because, you know, the system is that the young people are working, producing, and from that, you put money aside to pay the pension when they get old. That's the system. Yeah, but the demons spent the money for pension a long time ago, gambling it away or whatever. So they realize we have no money to pay pension for these people. What do you do with them? You kill them. That's what you do with them. And there's a way how to kill them. I don't want to go now into it, but there's a way how to kill old people. Very simple. Some epidemic. Vaccination. Beep, beep. Finished. And they do it in such an anonymous way. And old people are desperate, they are afraid. I will die, I will die, I will die. And they go, yeah, well, just, we will save you from death. Take vaccination. And they kill you. Anyway, it's, there's very, big discussions. I don't want to get into this. But the policy is to kill you. That's the demoniac policy. Krishna conscious policy is to facilitate people in the precious time of their lifetime to be able to do the maximum devotional service in any position. And Prabhupada was foreseeing all this. He said, no. It's not going to be just the Hare Krishna movement in a temple. He said the temple is just a small thing, but there will be a congregation. Now the success of congregation is that they identify themselves with the temple. This is our temple. You know where I first time learned to know this? It's a long story, but I was then as a brahmachari. I was a Sankirtan leader. Anyway. And Sankirtan was those days called all kinds of things. This was in a later portion, after 15 years of book distribution. I was still a Sankirtan leader in Sweden. But Sankirtan was, they said for a very temporary time, defined as paraphernalia distribution. Now this is a subject which I am not going to go into it now, but it's a total wrong thing. So the Sankirtan devotees found themselves distributing all kinds of garbage to collect money. Once again, the money was the real thing. If people don't give money, and it's a fact, if you are in a very impious location, people don't give donations. So we have to collect ourselves. That was the idea. We want a farm, nobody will donate you a farm. So we have to collect for it. So I was sent to India to collect, to Rajasthan, to collect the silk Rajasthani paintings to buy. I'm not a businessman, but I know, okay. That we had a whole bunch of girls who were distributing the silk paintings, making good profit on it. Anyway, so I arrived in Jaipur. That's the, capital. Never was in Jaipur, but I liked the place instantly. It's a purely Kshatriya type of dominated place. Jaipur kings, you can get to feel it. It's a very exclusive area. The town looks like a fortress. It's in a valley, so I came there. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in details, but I came there and I knew there's a Radha Govinda temple. There was no ISKCON established at that time. So, I remember I arrived there at night with a train from Delhi. It was a night train. So it was a small hotel, I got accommodated. And I came around midnight, and after 3 hours I woke up. I was going, what happened? The whole town is some panic. There was traffic like anything, 3 o'clock in the morning. Rickshaws and those days it was a simple cars, called Ambassador. Mama, and it was a heavy traffic, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was going, what is this? Well, I found out soon what all these people are doing. They were going for Mangal. The whole town goes to Mangal. I never saw this before, of course. So I also went to Mangal to Radha Govinda temple. It's a kind of big courtyard. Altar is like here, it's even more simple, but it's big. And there was Radha Govinda. Amazing deities, very powerful. The temple room was so packed, it was huge. And I was wondering, it was so ugly. They had in front of the altar, they had the same piece of iron like you have on a highway. To prevent that the trucks go off the road. This was around the altar like this. I was going, this is really ugly. But when the curtain went open, I understood why they have it. Because 1,000 people rushed towards the deities. They will break through a wooden fence or something like this, and they will end up on an altar. They had this iron barrier there to prevent that pressure of the people. The atmosphere was incredible. I never saw anything like this. Just imagine you have a temple and there's at least 1,000 people inside. And they are all chanting, and they were completely at home. This was their temple. That was really congregational experience. And there was things going on the altar, like traffic on the altar you couldn't imagine. There was, throughout the day, there was marriages taking place. Rich businessmen arrived and they gave a big donation and asked for blessings. They were changing the outfits on the altar 3 times a day. And then behind the altar you could go around, circumambulate the whole altar. There was an extra room that there was the maha, the outfits of the deities. You could get a maha, the whole outfit, which was completely new. It was dressed in the morning and in the evening they gave it away like maha. Because there was a half of the town was making outfits, It was an atmosphere I never saw before. I was like, this is really congregation. And when it a little bit cooled down in the afternoon, I went out of the courtyard and I went the back street. And there was a wall, and there was a bunch of young guys sitting on that wall, just dangling with the feet, Indians. Young guys, but they look quite aggressive. And they never saw much of a Western devotee either. That was very new. People came to me on the street and they were going, oh, you have to open temple here, Yeah. And, everybody talked to me, And I was like, ooh, whoa. Anyway, Jaipur was an incredible atmosphere there. So I passed in the street and there was this boy sitting on a wall just dangling with the feet. And they look at me and going, Hare Krishna! Very heavy. People in Jaipur are like that. Hare Krishna! Come here! Prasadam! Sit down! So, and I was like, it was like 10 of them. So I was like, oh, Hare Krishna. I was still a young boy relatively. I was maybe in the 30s or something like this. So I passed by, they were going, hey, come here. And they look at me really challenging. I was going, oh, now the trouble starts. How do you fight 10 young guys? They looked really like a gang, And they look at me very, very heavy and said, you were in a temple? I was going, yeah. You like Radha Govinda? And I was going, oh, they are beautiful. And they look at me and they ask, it's our Radha Govinda. Even these youngsters, that gang, completely identifies themselves with the temple. That's congregation. When we come to that standard, we have a good time, So, and we still see devotees tend to come together. Once I complained to Harikesh, I'm managing the whole year around the temple, which is most of the time empty. Just making expenses, and it's just, it's just trouble to maintain such a big facility. And you look at me like, what's the problem? All ISKCON temples are empty. It's just for the weekend, it's just festivals and this. He took it like reality, especially in the West. If you are in Jaipur, you will see something else, But in the West, it's basically the standard. Previously, temples were empty, why? Because everybody was in Sankirtan. Now, the temples are empty because everybody is working. And Prabhupada respected that. He said, Grihastha, he has to work. He was working too, He was every day opening his pharmacy. And he was not, every day in a temple. That's, and this whole issues, congregation and temple devotees relationship, you find it all documented in Prabhupada's letters. So this should be the relationship. And nowadays, previously, temples were maintained by brahmacharis and sankirtan. So nobody bothered much with the congregation. We collected our money, we maintained our temple, and then people came, okay. Now we have temples which are basically entirely depending on the congregation. And congregation is, this is actually what maintains these temples. Basically, I don't know exactly the details, how it's here or whatever, but generally when I travel around, well, that's what it is. And then you have devotee communities who don't have an established temple, really. They just celebrate together festivals, they come together anywhere, in various places. That's also very nice, and they try to actually eventually have even established temple. This is actually the nicest thing. When you have a fired up congregation to the degree they say, okay, we want to have a temple here. And then the preaching devotees, they go, oh, that's a very nice idea. Do it. Because then the identification is instant. When they build themselves in our community a temple, they go, well, I was donating for this, I was doing this, and they go, this is our temple. Creates a very, very personal atmosphere. And the brahmacharis and the sannyasis, they are just supposed to travel and preach, not just collect money for the temple. But we have to do that. We know that. We are realistic. We have to do that. Because sometimes the congregational support is very weak or it's not enough. So we have to do that. And that's okay. Brahmacharis collect for the temple. We know that. But their major purpose of them is preaching. They should be actually free. I was raised in a movement as a brahmachari where I was simply a collector. I was just collecting lots of money. All the time, for 15 years I was out there. I came back to the temple and the temple president said, we have debts. The word debt I heard all the time. So we were just all the time out there, but to a large degree, not all the time, we were distributing books. And that's what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted actually ISKCON being based on book distribution. And congregational support, that's very nice. But never losing the base of book distribution. And how did he do that? He even gave the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust the license that it can borrow money or contribute to the construction of temples. but only from the profit being made. And then the book distribution is powering the whole thing like this, always like underneath. I know it sounds maybe today a little bit controversial, but this is fact, this can be documented. Therefore Prabhupada actually made the BBT a separate entity. He registered the BBT like a separate movement, you could say almost. So in times ISKCON is in trouble or whatever, BBT will not get affected. But it gets affected because the biggest customers of Bhaktivedanta Book Trust are the book distributors. You know, even there are other attempts being made, books being distributed in other ways. It's good. Any attempt is good. In America, I heard they do really a big thing on internet. You know, powering book distribution via internet, because the whole America is just on internet, totally. They buy things on internet, they live on internet, they sleep on internet, they do everything on internet. So, you know, in Europe is also more and more like that, but it's not as dominant as in America, so far I heard. So devotees use it. They are pumping out lots of books, mailing out books on the internet like anything. It's very good. Prabhupada would approve that, truly. You have Slovenia, it's famous for that. Slovenia is powering book distribution by Shastradhan. You know, I was there was a time I was very often in Slovenia, and I was wondering how such a small yatra, just few brahmacharis, and they can distribute so many books. Why? Well, they had a very heavy, elaborate arrangement because Slovenian people, they are Vaishya type, you know, these are little Vaishya, you know. So, you know, so they encourage them, please, you don't have to go on Sankirtan. You don't have to distribute books. Just buy the books and give them to the temple for disposal. So they had every year, they were targeting different areas. They got big, you know, pallets of books being paid. So they, one year they were targeting the libraries in jails or the libraries in a hospital. There are different libraries, places like this, you can place our books for free. This was already going on during Prabhupada's presence, and devotees were going like, but Prabhupada, you said we should never give out the books for free. Prabhupada said, they are not for free, they are already paid. That was his major concern, that the BBT gets paid. And then you distribute. So things like that can be done. There are so many programs. That was Prabhupada's mood, because book distribution also keeps us pure. You know, it commands a certain spirit, a certain consciousness, which is very clean. So anyway, this is just a few points to mention. So it is not easy to maintain or increase favorable congregation, because people collect nowadays thanks to internet. They collect so much rubbish. Or, not rubbish, just negativity, bad news. And this is what Srila Prabhupada opposed from the beginning. The first internet machine coming up in his presence was telefax, I remember. It's a big machine. Telefax. So you could send telefax to America. How? Well, you type the whole thing on the board, and then it was transmitted to a white stripe, like telegraph, you know. And on the other side, it came out like the white stripe. And then you ripped out the stripe, put it in another opening of the machine, you know, and the machine could read the stripe and printed the paper out. Quite elaborate thing. It was loud like hell. I remember as a brahmachari, I used to sleep in a room where the telefax was. I mean, it was very disturbing. In the middle of the night, you know, blink, you know, and the white stripes start to come out. That was the predecessor of internet. Prabhupada didn't like that. in general. You know, internet was originally invented as a plain information disseminating media. Okay? Zending, that's how internet started. These freaky students developed them simple machines to shift to themselves big files to studying material and, And also call for meetings, we have a meeting, 3 o'clock, blah, 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 and everybody knew. Yeah? And then internet grew into that what we have today, monstrous jungle with all kinds of people talking anything they want, disseminating anything they want, rumors, gossip, slander, blasphemy, it goes full scale, No rules, there's no etiquette on internet. They can write, Manidhara is a cannibal. He eats people, How can I stop it? And then I will have meet people sooner or later will go, Prabhu, are you eating people? Are you cannibal? And I have to answer that. Just to deal with that issue is ridiculous. The internet is full of this kind of things. So it can pollute the congregation as well. Because all the congregation is hanging out on the internet. So it's very difficult to establish a personal relationship, but that's what devotees should do. They should be transparent, honest in their dealings with the congregation and provoke the congregation to invest their faith into those who do nothing else as spending 24 hours a day trying to spread Krishna consciousness. That's the general guideline. There is some more questions to that or some more detailed questions?
Can you repeat this last point?
Hmm?
Can you repeat this last point?
Huh?
Can you repeat this last point?
That there should be an atmosphere of mutual increasing faith commanded by the transparency of devotees who obviously do nothing else as spreading Krishna consciousness in the best way they can. That's generally what it should be. And I tell you quite frankly, it pays off. I know a community like this, I know a temple like that. It doesn't have even established deities. I know a congregation like that, where devotees live in such a pure and transparent way that the congregational members who create some financial, income, even not being super rich people, they just by seeing the temple president being so sacrificing and so, transparent in his dealings, they go, Prabhu, I have a little present for you. It's a ticket to India. You must go to Mayapur festival. Yeah. Just like this, spontaneously. That's called commanding authority, commanding respect. Not demanding authority and not demanding respect. It's not easy to establish such an atmosphere because Kali Yuga is full of suspicion, mistrust, and deceit. It's a challenge to create such a thing. Even Prabhupada, who could attach some blame to him, and still he was blamed. I don't want to go now in detail, even by his own god brothers, how Prabhupada was treated. He was defined as a money-oriented person. Oh, then he should really have some big private account with some big money, and have some private retreat where he goes and enjoys the money. Oh, where was that? Prabhupada shared even his dress with his servants. Because he got always so much dress, When you become a established guru like this, so, was a cupboards full of jumpers and, knitting and all this, socks and hats, and Prabhupada had a whole storage of that. After every Vyasa Puja was like, it was full. So Prabhupada immediately invited his servants and everybody, and he said, you need a jumper here, please take. He opened the cupboard and he emptied out his dress immediately and shared it with others. I experienced similar things with my GBC, with Hare Krishna. He gets also this big Vyasa Pujas, getting also lots of money and all this. And after every Vyasa Puja, he invited all the God brothers, and everybody of us got something, whatever you wanted. So you got hats and jumpers and socks, and one of the God brothers, I remember he got a yellow gumidag, because some children gave him, as an offering a gumidag. Well, what can he do as a sannyasi and a guru with a gumidag? So they had a funny relationship. He said, and for you, I have a gumidag. So, but the mood was there to share immediately. We had problem with our GBC, with the sannyasi. His devotees were sometimes so worn out, when he walked, they start to fall apart. So we were going to him and said, come on, you're the authority here, you cannot look like that. And he said, what? It's still okay. We were going, come on, there's a big hole in the back, Sannyas devotees, they are like this. And it was like, it was a crack, it was increasing, and he was sitting like this. We told him, you cannot have a dhoti like this, it's ridiculous. He said, okay, then I will change the dhoti, but this old dhoti can be still used as a gamsha, That was, noticed. And he was operating millions and millions of dollars. So, that can change too. When you do it for a long time, operating these millions of dollars, you get used to it. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Therefore, Krishna sometimes purposefully keeps us very poor, so we don't get spoiled. Otherwise, Krishna can give us so much, He's a God. He can send you a man walking here in a door, he goes, well, I like this temple, but I don't like the roof. It's a new roof, but I would like to put a golden roof there. And he gives you money for that. Well, you think this is ridiculous. We don't need a golden roof. But probably you have to do that, because this is his idea. And he will go, my temple, I put a golden roof there. Sometimes you have to go along with that, just to encourage people to take part. It's an extreme example, okay? We have so many ways to spend money. I could give you a long list of programs which are very money consuming, which I think would be very needed. And here we come to the point of devotee care. Oh, I could give somebody who has lots of money, could give him ideas. I would start creating a fund for old, you could say maybe even partially invalid devotees who still are eager to do some service. So they don't have to live on a social welfare. They don't live like after years and years of service, they end up just going to the karmis begging for some money. This is really humiliating. This is a big disaster. in a movement which is operating millions and millions and millions of dollars. I'm speaking about India especially and Russia, maybe, I don't know. Not about Zagreb. Here nobody operates millions of dollars, I know that. There are so many projects. How to take care of devotees. What about the young ones? Since we are here on a devotee care. What about the young ones? Children of devotees who grew up in Krishna consciousness, they don't know any other thing as Krishna consciousness, and they have no place in ISKCON. Sorry, they don't. They don't find a way how to apply themselves, in a movement, unless, like example, they don't become a brahmachari and live in a temple. But there's very few. It's a training. Brahmacharis probably or may not stay brahmacharis. They get married and become congregational members. What is their future? What is the future of these young people who instinctively feel that they cannot really full blast, go into the kami world and become part of that circus? They are devotees. But how do they apply themselves? Where is that kind of community? Where is that kind of atmosphere? There are thousands of them. Thousands and thousands of young people who, you may say, partially are not inspired to be active even in ISKCON. Partially, you can say some of them may be a little bit in Maya. That can be. But still, they need leadership. They need inspiration. They need support. And most of them will not be brahmacharis. They will be grihastas. So where do they find a place with their families to flourish in a ISKCON Krishna conscious communities? And these communities, they don't, and they do, some of them, but it's very hard. It would be nice if these communities would receive some support so they can grow faster, they can grow bigger, accommodating more devotees. We need strong communities along the Varnashram Dharma. It's not like all children of devotees are brahmanas, I don't think so. You find the whole Varnashram Dharma right away projected into these children. So the Brahminical ones, they should be facilitated this way. The Kshatriya type this way, the Vaishya that way, the Shudra that way. There's a whole system. You want Varnashram Dharma, it's already standing in front of you in form of these children. And they need support. And you have to make some investment. Who's investing in these young people? I'm not speaking about the old ones. Yeah, the old ones are more, they will survive and die. I'm one of them, so I know. I'm kind of surviving, and I see the death just standing around the corner. My time is coming. Not a clear signs yet. I'm still kind of alive, but in my age, many only died. They're not here. They died much younger like me. So it's quite possible. The option is quite visible. So I don't bother about myself, and I don't, okay. You know how much money I collected for ISKCON? Oof. I calculated around 15 years on Sankirtan, pure profit from book distribution, around 3.5 million euros, something like that. By doing 400, 500 books a week. That became like the average. Anyway, it's just a simple calculation, but I don't care. I didn't distribute these books to get some pension and, No. I just know one thing. If ISKCON doesn't help, Krishna will help. You can be sure of that. He never forgets the service of a devotee. Krishna is most so grateful, it's shocking. It's shocking. There were moments in my life I was thinking, okay, well, that's just really the almost dead end road, No, Krishna always shows. No, this is not a dead end. This is just the beginning of another chapter. So Krishna is always there. Prabhupada was always there. And he sent God brothers, he sent help, he sent assistance of an amazing kind. I'm a living example of that. So much for the old ones. But I'm thinking all the time about the young ones. You could assume that they have some life ahead. Of course you can die even when you are young, but they have some, we should put our energy into this. Invite these people. Some may not want to become part. They are satisfied sitting at home on the internet and discussing how bad ISKCON is. Well, it's not very inspiring, activity, but they insist on that. Collecting, the garbage. There's lots of garbage, sorry. No problem. And I'm not saying it's all lies out there. There's real things. Really bad things. But it doesn't matter. Once I used to collect that stuff, my question to the young people would be, okay, what are you going to do now with your life? Prabhupada exists. Krishna exists. What you're going to do with it? You know what Prabhupada wanted us to do? Preach. They go, I am not the traveling preacher, I have my family already, or I want to have a family. Then preach to the family, damn it. Live an exemplary life of a devotee. That's actually preaching. That's preaching in itself. Because people will notice, this is Hare Krishna family, this is not a normal family. They'll notice. And they will ask questions. I know from the communities who actually already practice, have a nice standards, practice Krishna consciousness, they command respect among the kamis. They go, oh, look at this, Hare Krishna. They are hardworking, this is decent people. Devotees get respected like this. That's also preaching. So that sounds like more like a calling out, appeal, please. Well, I am using this opportunity to say such things, but for me it's like more like a vision. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I don't see young people being enthused in general. I have a 24 years old daughter. You think she is enthusiastic to go out and fight for ISKCON today? No, she's not. For various reasons, whatever it is. And she could give so much, She grew up in Krishna consciousness. For her, Krishna is fact. It's total reality. Who was her first friend when she was a small girl? Who was the first girl she really came to love? It was her friend. It was Radharani. She could barely walk. She was hanging on a deity greeting, always staring on Radharani. Because she said, this is a small girl, it's my friend. She wanted to check out how dressed she is, and she was going, wow. Can you imagine to grow up like that? When I was a small boy, I was staring on a grey wall of the house in Prague. It was raining. That was my childhood. It was my darshan. dirty, old, filthy Prague, communistic Prague. Every morning I could look out of the window and there was banners, always flags and banners all the time. With Soviet Union forever. It was always hanging these, things around. But I didn't know where Soviet Union is, at Russia, where is Russia? I could give you an aesthetic impression of the old communistic days. I remember just the pictures, This filthy, dirty man is sitting in front of the factories with this, all looking the same, with his working outfit, with a bottle of beer in a hand. The smoke of a cheap nicotine from the cheap cigars mixed with the smell of urine from the bars, from the toilets. Yeah, that was my childhood. That was my darshan. Just imagine these kids, they grew up with Krishna on a wall. I remember, I can tell you a story, One Grihastha, in the very early days, one of the first Grihastha generation in ISKCON, he had a small boy. And he came to Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, my son told me today in the morning that he was at night sleeping and he had a little picture of Gopal hanging over his bed. And my son told me, last night Gopal came out of the picture and he spoke to me. I was actually very happy, and then he went back to the picture and I fell asleep. He was going, yeah, some dream, children have some dreams. And Prabhupada looked at him very seriously. And the devotee said, Prabhupada, is it possible? Krishna coming out of the picture and speaking to such a small child? And Prabhupada told him, of course it's possible. He did come out of the picture and he spoke to your son. And the Grihastha, I think he was a little bit envious on his son. Because Krishna didn't come out of the picture for him. Can you imagine to spend a childhood like this? Kirtan, all the time. You have a mother, already in the womb. You cannot go anywhere, okay? You are just like, but you can. Your consciousness is becoming more and more. Already before you come out, you are conscious. So you hear all the time. The hearing comes up. And you hear, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Mama is chanting. You just whole day, and you cannot go anywhere. You just, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You can hear, Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Mama is in a kirtan. Then you come out. Now you forget lots of when you come out. It's and then you have this small baby body. But like for my daughter was a little bit, she had a special upbringing. She grew up in a car to a great degree, in a camper. She was here. When she was already 2-3 years old, she was in Croatia, because we traveled all the time. She thought this was fun. She learned swimming in Vinodolski here, or the coast in Croatia and in Adriatic Sea. She learned swimming here, and then, and she was doing this and that, and she's a whole Europe she had like this. Even she forgot some things, but I think nowadays she still keeps on traveling. So when she comes into the place, she goes, oh yeah, I remember, I was here. I was a small girl. And devotees remember her too. Oh, you are the small Malini. Yeah, but she's now bigger like me, They go, whoa. For her, it's just temple life. It's normal. It's reality. We had actually at home not an altar. We created a little community. And instead of an altar, we had Vyasasam with Prabhupada. And by circumstances, I got hold of an extremely beautiful murti of Prabhupada. These murtis are done by Vainateya Prabhu. He's from he was from Serbia. And he had an atelier in Simhachalam on later, and also he had a place in Germany, in Augsburg, and he was producing these murtis. He was also doing Gonitai and all kinds of... So, and he did one murti of Prabhupada which was not painted, but the mold was, it was already done from the same color like that. So Prabhupada looked really natural, it looked like his skin. Same murti like this, same position. So that was our altar. We had an altar there, and I grew up with, the community grew, we had like 8 small children running around, basically the same age. So for them, Prabhupada was like part of the household. He was a part of the family. The first word my Torah ever said was Prabhu Papa. And Prabhu Papa was Papa. I was not Papa. Prabhu Papa was Papa. And I was something else. I got another title. And there was Mama and Papa. And Papa was Prabhupada. And these girls, they grew up, they were daily bringing flowers to Prabhupada, they talked to him. When one girl got in trouble with the other one, she went to Papa and complained. For them, he was sitting there. We had kirtans in front of him, My daughter revealed just in some Vyasa Puja offering 2-3 years ago, I didn't know it, but she said one day, when she was small girl, he said, I climbed up on a Vyasa and I looked back if Prabhupada is also a Sika. For them, this, was reality. So what do you do with children who you could say infected with Krishna consciousness that much? So we have to try to help them, facilitate and challenge them. You got so much about Krishna consciousness, use it. Don't join this garbage sink they're out there so nicely. No, sometimes devotees have to do the needful. Of course, we have to work something and maintain the body. But that doesn't mean you surrender to this and try to make career, Big karma. It will anyway not work. These children are cursed. I know this. When they try to become a big karmis, the karmis always discover, you are not a real karmi. And even they don't dress like devotees, they don't look like a devotee, the karmis will discover, you are not a really bona fide karmi, They always get moved out. So they should have a community where they feel at home, where they can raise their children, where they can spread Krishna consciousness further and further and further. I don't know how much time we have, but I don't want to. There's some more questions for this, or some details?
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Can you give a suggestion how to inspire a congregation for book distribution?
By example, that's the first thing. Book distribution cannot be taught in an academic way. It can be disseminated as information in an academic way, but the real book distribution is practiced by example. It happens on the street. I was several times scheduled to make some book distribution seminars, but okay, you can do that. There's definitely needed some preparation. But then part of the seminar was that everybody goes out on the street. Because then you face the reality. Oh, I can give you a whole introduction to that anyway, but the first thing what a person thinks Even he would get the idea to distribute books. He said, no, I cannot do it. I have my job, or from whatever karmic background they come, or whatever. But they say, no, maybe this special, brahmacharis, they can do that. I cannot do that. Oh, that's illusion. Everybody can do that. The question is, do you want to do it? And that's the first thing you get when you take them on the street, they stand there I give you a congregational member, first day on book distribution. So he stands there going, then they come back and they don't take it. I tell them, of course they don't take it because you don't give it to them. It sounds stupid, isn't it? But it's really a problem. They don't know. I mean, you mean I can just go to him like this? Hello? In some countries it's less. People are more passionate. They have not done. But some countries it's very difficult. And then you have the Indians, first day on a book distribution. That's really far. They know about Lord Chaitanya and everything. They go, Gauranga, Jiv Jago, we came to illuminate you. And people go, it's a good idea, but wrong place, wrong people. It's very difficult to transmit to people the ultimate vision of a Sankirtan devotee. Everybody is crazy here. You entered a madhouse, one way or another. That doesn't mean one should be arrogant. You crazy man. No, not at all. How do you deal with a crazy man? Everybody thinks he is something. Like you come to a nut house, crazy house, and there's one guy who thinks he's Napoleon. Another one thinks he's Jesus. So how do we approach people like that? Everybody thinks he's something in the material world. So how do you approach them? Prabhupada gave us the formula how to approach them. My dear sir, respectfully, you are so great. You are so intelligent. You are so powerful. You are so resourceful. I would humbly ask you, please, for few seconds, can you please put aside your attributes and accept the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? This is like the mood. Prabhupada never gave the distribution mantra because he knew it's different from place to place. But the idea is like that. So you don't threaten the false ego of the kami, you overcome it by your humility. That's just an introduction, So, but you have to be there with these people on the street. You have to organize. Whoever is a little bit interested, please come with us. Just for 1 hour, just for a short, brief period of time. You cannot expect a new member running the whole day on Sankirtan like a Sankirtan does, devotee does. Maybe you find such an exceptional person, but just have a try it out. Just one book when they distribute, they will never forget. The next thing, what they always do on a street congregation, or inexperienced people, they talk to people a lot. Because they expect to have a rational response. You have to explain, and then they will buy it. You know what? You can explain to kamis nothing. Why? It's a wrong place. They are running, shopping, And then you want to stop and explain? Now you may maybe once a month meet somebody like this. Oh yeah, when he has questions, we should be able to answer. But this is very exceptional. Most people are just, they have other things in their head. They are busy, So you go and you're also busy. So here's the book, just thinking. When you are really fired up, it sounds crazy, don't copy this, but when I got really inspired on Sankirtan, people said, oh, a book, yeah, do you know how to read? Of course. You read books? You like books? Yeah, I read books. Read. What shall I do with it? Read it. And what's inside? I said, paper. Lots of paper here. They were laughing. Yeah, that's true. There's lots of paper here. And what shall I do with it? He said, pay for it. Give a little bit. I mean, when you are really fired up and blissful, they start to laugh and they think, my God, this man is so fired up. He is so enthusiastic. There must be something in that book which is kind of interesting. We infect people with our enthusiasm. We infect people with our Krishna consciousness. So that's important because we are not selling just books. We are selling ourselves. Here I am, take me. Take it or leave it. So, it's not to be expected that the first day some new person will immediately assimilate that. But I tell you quite frankly, Sankirtan is such an ocean of mercy coming down on that person. They can change very quickly. I took out people on Sankirtan with mentally deranged, really strange and difficult cases. After 1 week book distribution, there was so much improvement. They ask me always, what do you do with these people on the street? I can give you examples. Oh my God. We had one new devotee and they told me, take him on Sankirtan, don't bring him back. Why? Because he was chanting Hare, Hare, Hare. In times where, when people came to the temple and they see a man sitting in a corner like this, and he was especially going in a corner just to be very, hearing the name. And he was like... So at that time people were reading the newspaper, when you enter the sect, they will damage your brain and this kind of things, Then they come to the temple. And so the temple president said, no, please. He doesn't want to leave, but take him out and kind of lose him on a way. But I thought this is a serious person. So I took him out and he was in the back of the car. So I showed him very simply what to do on the street and he was, okay. And he was doing that. After 1 week, he really was, and he started to chant all Maha Mantra. He came back, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. He was saying, what did you do with him? And I said, nothing. He was just on the street trying to distribute some books. And he did distribute some books. Later on he became a head pujari in Simhachal. You meet people like that. I saw amazing things happening. Just by exposing people to Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So Sankirtan is exciting. But one has to be there. You have to be with these people. It's not enough when they fill in some paper or write something and then you go, wish you good luck on Sankirtan. They will not do it. So personal example is necessary. Okay? That's all? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.